Hi, everybody. Meteorologist Brett Thackara here with you alongside my good friend, meteorologist Dan Tomaso. Dan, how are you?
Great to see you, Brett. And what's even better about today is we're just another day closer to college football. And you and I are meteorologists, clearly. That's our
Yes,
day job.
correct.
But I think what many of the audience may know or possibly may not know as much is that we are diehard football guys.
Yeah, really sports guys, too. Baseball, a lot of different things, but it's football season. And so we last year we launched kind of a little show here with weather incorporated into sports and sports wagering. And we called it Weather Wagers. And this year we wanted to make it bigger and better than ever. We're going to be more consistent with it. We're going to bring it to you each and every Wednesday. And you're going to be able to find that on abc27.com, on YouTube. We're going to flood social media with it so that you know what we're thinking when it comes to weather and how it affects everything. It affects us every day. And, of course, it affects sports games, especially outdoor air weather games like football.
Absolutely.
And we're going to find the games that we think weather could have an impact on. We're also going to tell you our thoughts about different types of games and how we may wager on them as we decide who may be favored and who may not be and how the weather would play into that.
Now, I will say I'm wearing my Penn State tie today, and some of the reasoning behind why we wanted to start such a thing is,
Yes.
and I've said this throughout the years, we'll be texting during Penn State games, Penn State has a knack of playing down to the weather. When the weather's poor, all of a sudden the game plan is poor. All of a sudden the running game, passing game sort of falls apart, and it's almost like, again, some of these teams aren't prepared for the elements. Penn State just happens to be the one you and I follow. I'm sure it happens across the country too, but when you're playing big conference games, think Illinois last year.
Yeah.
It's a game you shouldn't lose at
I don't
home.
want to think about Illinois last year.
But weather was the equalizer, right?
It really was. So we're going to make no bones about it. We are Penn State guys. We graduated from there. We're Penn State fans. And, of course, that may come through from time to time. But the bigger picture is here, as you said, we're sports fans. So what we're going to do each and every Wednesday is kind of break down the sports setting as we move into each week. And that's what I want to talk to you about here and what we hope to accomplish with this program. And that is talking about our expertise in meteorology and how that can relate to sports and sports betting, because sports betting is huge.
It's just growing.
It's growing. We both do it, and we both talk about it a lot. And we talk about how the weather may affect a point spread. It also may affect the game itself. Not only whether it rains or not. And remember the Michigan State-Penn State game a few years ago. We had a huge rain delay in the middle of that game, and it completely took the momentum away from us, and it gave all the momentum to Michigan State. So I think that one of the things that we have to consider, too, is the wind, the rain, the heat. Snow as we get into the later parts of the season. The weather has a big effect on these games, and we absolutely want to bring our expertise to you and talk about how that may have an impact on some of the games across the country. So we're going to be doing that, again, each and every Wednesday. We're going to break down this in depth. We're going to talk about weather. We're passionate about this, and we're excited to be able to talk about that with all of you.
And I think, too, the big thing is, we follow the big games. We also follow the small games, which, again, equally, whether it's Big Ten, whether it's Sun Belt.
So, sometimes those are those fun ones to wager on,
right.
too.
So we're going to touch all of those. We're going to have a few feature segments, too, where we look at, say, small games. We look at games perhaps outside of the Big Ten.
Right.
The games people are talking about, what you are talking about at home. If you have any suggestions throughout the season of a game maybe you're heading out to, you want to forecast for, let us know.
Yep, we want you to weigh in on social media. We're going to be, again, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. It's everywhere, and we want to hear from you. So let's start by talking about some news and notes across college football. And yesterday, we were both listening to the radio, and I happened to hear Brett McMurphy break this on Paul Feinbaum yesterday about Nick Saban getting an extension. And then, of course, everybody else had it a little bit later. The man just signed, I think it was a $93 million extension. And guess what? He's college football's best coach. He should get an extension.
Yeah, from what I understand, he got an extension. The athletic director got an extension. I mean, it's a dynasty. It's what every coach dreams about.
Yep.
And, the wild part about Saban, and I went to a game with you, Penn State, Alabama, back in 2011, I think. And that was just kind of, okay, who is this guy? Obviously, he's building something. He's winning national championships. But from that point onward, I mean, it has just been a model of consistency. The game is changing around him. He's only getting older, but he still relates to these 18, 19-year-old kids he's recruiting.
He's 70. He's 70, and I will tell you, I think he's underpaid.
I think he's underpaid,
I know that sounds weird, but imagine the amount of money that he's bringing into that university. I mean, Mel Tucker just got a close to $10 million contract. James Franklin.
Right.
Nick Saban, has won 7 national titles.
And one thing I'll say about the Franklin deal is, as this continues to evolve, I think that's going to be a steal. I really do. I think you're going to get James Franklin at a bargain price doing it early now because the SEC schools, these new TV deals that are coming, and we're going to talk about some of that in a little bit. But I think, people kind of went shock and awe with the Franklin deal.
Yeah.
I didn't. I'm like, that is the going rate. If you want to keep a coach involved in a Power 5 school that is relevant, that's what you have to do, unfortunately.
It's money, and Penn State has to learn that the hard way because
right.
They got off easy for a long time.
Yes, they did.
So
yes, they did.
That's important. Let's talk quickly about some coaches on the hot seat here going into this season. We do think one of our games of the week is actually Nebraska-Northwestern.
100%.
I don't know if there's a coach more on the hot seat than Scott Frost.
And it's a shame. I thought it was a match made in heaven. I thought Scott Frost going home, recruiting to the Cornhuskers would be easy, but it's been anything but, and they now have Mark Whipple as their offensive coordinator.
He was at Pitt last year, and we're going to get into that. I want to save some of that for the game talk, but, Kenny Pickett now with the Steelers, if they can get some of that offensive magic to translate, they could have a big year. Anybody else that comes to mind being on the hot seat?
Is Pat Fitzgerald in any type of trouble? Last year was a
could
bomb.
be the hot seat bowl.
Yeah, it could be the hot seat bowl, and
yeah.
It's a shame. This is the one. I love college football, but every game matters so much, and to start out a season with almost a must-win for both schools, because it could really change the path, the projection of both, depending on how this goes. And I'm predicting some ugly football there in that game. That's just what my mindset is. It's Big Ten. Maybe not the most talented teams. It could be pretty ugly stuff.
It definitely could be. Let's talk quickly, too, about those TV deals. And Urban Meyer finds himself back on TV.
He always does. He always does. It's hard to imagine Urban Meyer not being on the sidelines, all the bouncing back and forth he does. But he is good on television. I give him that much.
He is. He breaks down the X's and O's. I'm not sure if he has any credibility left. But
after what happened in Jacksonville, I'm not sure either.
But he does know football.
He does.
And he is a winning coach.
He does.
He's back on TV, and the Big Ten signing a new TV deal with 3 major networks, which is phenomenal money for the schools. And that's where you talk about it. They may not be done yet because that's why these coaches are – and, James Franklin and Mel Tucker are good football coaches. Mm-hmm. They haven't won the titles that Saban has, but you need them to stay in place for recruiting purposes. Right. Now, all of a sudden, we hear rumors, too, that Oregon may be sniffing around the Big Ten.
The Pac-12, unfortunately, I think is – living a slow death.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but when you have UCLA, USC fleeing, going to the Big Ten, I thought the natural fit was Oregon, but there were rumors as of Tuesday that some officials from Oregon, whether it's the AD, the president, sniffing around Kevin Warren.
Yep.
They want their piece of the pot, too. And when you can double the amount of money you're bringing back to your school just by going to a different conference, it's almost a no-brainer.
It is, and it provides better content for the TV networks.
100%.
There's no doubt about it. Let's get into things now. We want to talk about the games of the week. So each week, now this is week 0, so that, I kind of hate that name. I didn't come up with it, but that's what they call it. There's only a few games, and when we highlight our games of the week, these are going to be games where we think weather could at least have some factor. Now, this is a caveat for this week. We are a little bit limited in some of the games that we could pick because there's only a few games,
but
right?
It's football.
But it's football, and it's back, and we're happy to be talking about it. So the first game that we're going to mention here is that Nebraska-Northwestern game at noontime. That is taking place in Dublin, Ireland, Dan. And
the Croke Bowl, correct?
Yes.
Is that what they call it?
I think it's going to be pretty cool to see that. And we're going to highlight then Wyoming, Illinois.
Yes.
The Cowboys traveling to Illini Stadium, Memorial Stadium there in Champaign, Illinois, taking on Brett Bielema in his second year. And then the evening game we've selected is Charlotte versus Florida Atlantic. We're going to get into all of this. Let's talk about the lines on this. I was shocked that Nebraska was favored by 12.5.
Yeah, this seems like a stinker to me. I don't quite see a 12.5-point spread between the two teams, especially coming off of last year. Now, again, everything is with a grain of salt this week because we truly don't know a whole lot yet. I mean, we can read the pundits. You can, read all the articles out there, and you and I frequent them. But I just don't know if we know enough about that. And the over-under also pretty high, 50.5 for some teams. I think they're going to struggle to score this year.
Well, and that's why I'm leaning toward the under, which we'll get into it a little bit. But I like Nebraska to win. I don't think they're going to win by that much. I think it's going to be sloppy.
I think it's going to be
I
very
think that's
sloppy.
going to be sloppy. But I do
turnovers.
think you talked about Mark Whipple. Him coming in there with a new look offense. If Scott Frost can leave him alone,
it might be good.
It might be very good, and that's what they need. Illinois favored by 10 points. That doesn't surprise me. This is a team that wants to run the football.
Yeah, that's what Brett Bielema was known for. Big offensive linemen, pushing and pulling and
shoving,
bumping. I think Wyoming doesn't suit that type of football.
No, they don't. And I mean, they have a good team.
Yes.
And weird things happen when you have to go to Laramie.
Mm-hmm.
Weird things happen because that's an elevation game. They're not going to be in Laramie. They're going to be in Champaign.
Right.
And I have a feeling Illinois will be popping some champagne at the end of that game.
And I think Illinois could be a bowl team this year.
No, I agree. I like what they've got. And we unfortunately saw what they had last year with that Penn State 9 overtime misery that we had to live through. Charlotte, Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic is favored by a touchdown in this
Owls.
one. Yeah, I like Will Healy. I like what he's done with Charlotte. They didn't have a great year last year. Neither team did. Willie Taggart is the coach of Florida Atlantic. And I will tell you, after a disastrous career in Oregon and Florida State, I've seen enough of his act. I think you're going to know where I'm leaning with that. But there will be some weather in each of these games.
Yes, and so we'll get into that too. So let's take you first. Let's just do a round robin, if you will, across the area of where all these games are. So you mentioned Champaign, 85. That's the fun part about these early games. It feels like summer and a lot of sunshine there potentially, but there is a warm front that'll be close by that area. Let's head down to El Paso. What are we looking at down there, Brett?
90 degrees, heat, humidity. Of course, it's going to be hot in El Paso, Texas, but they are on the drier side of Texas, so that's the good news for them. And that's going to be one of our under-the-radar games, too, which we're going to get to in just a bit. We didn't mention that with our last graphic there, but we'll get into that. Boca Raton, this is where the Charlotte, Florida Atlantic game will be. That one probably has the most impact in terms of weather because I think it's going to be very hot and also very stormy there. They could have to play in some wet conditions.
Well, and you also have to keep in mind conditioning.
Yep.
You know, you try to simulate games as best as possible in practice, but there's a lot more restrictions now in the NCAA about how long to practice for, when you can practice, and hot, humid environment in Florida with storms around. Those guys are going to be gassed.
I will say that, although at least Charlotte is pretty much in the same environment in the Carolinas. They're going to be used to it. And now we head overseas to Dublin. And I will tell you, I think this looks like the best weather of all. 68 degrees, a little breeze in Dublin. So if it comes down to a field goal, you're going to want to watch that. But I expect that to be a really nice day over in Dublin for that Nebraska game.
So let's dig into the details here a little bit in Dublin. So
let's look at this.
We are watching some clouds coming through during the day Saturday. Now, keep in mind, this is a very active area of weather to begin with. It tends to be very rainy in Ireland.
Does,
But according to this is the European model looking ahead to Saturday. Any rain should be far to the west and northwest.
It looks like a nice afternoon for a game. And that game kicks off 5 p.m. their time.
Right.
Or around there. So I think it's going to be nice. May even be in the 50s by that point.
Which is just wild to think about.
They're going to be experiencing more fall than we are. I do think at times, because it's near the coast, we're going to see a little bit of a breeze.
A little bit of wind picking up and shifting throughout the game.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a lot. But, could it play with a field goal kick here or there? Sure, it could.
Absolutely.
It could. But it's not going to be a big breeze. All right, now let's move on to Champaign.
Yeah, so in Champaign itself, I mentioned this front that's off to the west, but I think they're more in the warm sector of this. I think they're more on the dry side. You could see some showers there building off to the west over Iowa, but
there's kickoffs.
In the warm sector itself, 83 degrees, dry. Some showers actually heading more toward the Ohio Valley and western Pennsylvania, but I think they're dry throughout the course of the day and hot.
And I think Wyoming may struggle with some of the temperatures there. Not that it doesn't get hot there at times, but again, elevation going down to Champaign. And I do think a little bit of a breeze at times, too. I think you're going to see the winds here, Dan, if I'm not wrong here, shift more of a southeast by the time the game kicks off. Yeah, there they go.
And that's kind of the front. Playing with things a little bit. But, again, not all that strong. 5 to 10 miles per hour shouldn't be a large factor. As it gets colder, wind is always going to be more of a factor, especially in the Midwest.
And here is where we go to Boca Raton now, and this is where I think we could see the most active weather. You're going to get a sea breeze. You're also going to get some daily showers and storms, as is typically the case here in Florida. This game kicking off at 7 o'clock at night here in Boca Raton, and I expect some showers. And I hate to say this, it's one of the phrases I hate when I'm watching a game, especially one that I've had money on. Lightning in the distance.
I know. I was going to say lightning is something that you and I, we talk about on the air.
Right.
But for the most part, if you're indoors, who cares? When you're out in a bowl and you're out in a stadium, it becomes more of a problem. And it's always that half-hour rule, And that really messes with football games.
It messes with teams, I'll tell you what. So this game could have a delay in it. We're going to keep an eye on that one Saturday night in Boca. The winds, again, there's always going to be a little bit of a sea breeze. This is indicating, though, it's not going to be too terrible. Let's get into Saturday night. That is when the game kicks off. We do anticipate at least a slight breeze, maybe around 5 to 10 miles an hour. There you go. that could have an effect as well on some field goal kicking.
And any storms that blow through, too, ahead of it, it tends to get gusty. So
I would say this is the game to focus on with the weather.
Yeah, so weather could play a role there, could kind of equalize things a little bit between both teams. And again, it's early, so any outside distraction can be a lot.
It certainly can. So let's talk about the games of the week here again, and we've mentioned this before. There are the picks. We expect a sloppy day in Dublin.
We do. Now, I went a little bit different on this. I expect Northwestern to have a bounce-back season this year. There's something with their even years. Pat Fitzgerald tends to bounce back.
Yeah.
I think maybe this is the year they can get over 500.
So you're going to have them winning it all or covering?
I'm going to have them winning it all, not covering.
Wow. Okay, and that's going to be a big problem for Scott Frost on the plane.
Yes.
Back into Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm going to go under here. I don't have I think Nebraska wins. I don't really have a good side to the game. I think we're going to go under the 50.5.
Okay.
And I think we'll take that because I do think it's going to be sloppy. You and I both like Illinois here, and again,
love Brett Bielema.
I
belongs
just,
in the Big Ten.
He has not named his starting quarterback yet, but I'm not sure that matters.
I don't think it matters either. If they get a running game going, they can control the game.
Yep, I think so too, and I think for the most part. They're going to be in control of their season. They're one of those teams, I don't know if they can get to 8 wins, but I will tell you, I like them in this game, and I'm going to lay the 10 points.
Yeah, and then you're picking Charlotte. What's your thinking there?
Well, I've seen Willie Taggart coach. And quite frankly, I don't think he's very good at it.
And see, I still think of FAU as Lane Kiffin. My mind has not adjusted yet. That's where Lane resurrected himself, so to speak. But
he did.
You're right about Willie. He does make me nervous.
He does, yeah. So that's one where we differ on. You are going to say Florida Atlantic, the Owls at home.
Yep.
They're going to lay the 7 points. I'm going to take the 7 with Charlotte and say they can cover that. It may come down to a field goal on a breezy, stormy night in Boca Raton.
Yeah, could be very interesting. Again, all else could be equal because of the rain factor. And speaking of rain, and speaking of what we do in our day job, we're going to go under the radar a little bit, Brett. We stare at radar all day, but these are games that are perhaps being missed by those radar scans.
We do want to talk about some under the radar games. And this week, of course, we're only going to have one because this is going to be our one game every week that's a little bit under the radar. North Texas taking on UTEP. This is the game where we stopped in El Paso. It is going to be hot. It's a very close line.
Very close line.
North Texas, the mean green fighting machine. They are only a 1-point favorite here. And the over-under is relatively low because we talked about these teams can usually put up some points.
Yeah, I think this is going to be early and often scoring-wise. It could be a lot of fun to watch on television, by the way, too, if you're
I think it will be
to watch.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of weather, again, shouldn't be a huge factor in this game. There are actually showers and thunderstorms in the vicinity because this is monsoon season out in the southwest. But I do believe we stay high and dry during the game, just on the hot and maybe even a little bit humid too.
Yeah, what time does that kick off? I forget what we're talking about here. Let me see if I can find that.
Why don't you pull that up? But
7 p.m.
These early games can be fun for these teams that you don't follow as much because, again, you have no horse in the race. You can watch the points pile up.
Yeah.
I love Big 12 football because there's no defense and you just see teams air it out. This is a little bit different. But
it's Sun Bowl, but I will tell you that again, it can get pretty fun to watch some of these lower conferences. But to me, they kick off at 7 in the evening. It looks basically dry, but again, hot and humid. And what about the breeze? Do we have anything going on? There's usually a dry line or two this time of year, but it's
there
monsoon
may be a wind
season.
shift during the game, and we'll have to keep an eye on that. But at least this European forecast model not really picking up on too much there. Again, wind will be more of a factor as we get deeper into the season. So let's go to that pick, Brett. And what was your thinking here?
Well, I think it's been, 4 or 5 years since UTEP has beaten North Texas. They're on a run. North Texas has won the last 5. I think this is the year UTEP gets it done. I'm gonna. It's a low spread, but if I played this, I'm picking UTEP +1, and I think they can just at that point you're basically saying UTEP's going to win the game.
Correct. I'm going to go the over. I just think there's going to be a lot of points. Even though defense tends to be ahead of offense early in the season, let's just face it, neither team is known for their defense.
No.
So I think, rivalry game, so to speak, a game that matters to both teams.
They've played every year for the last several, and so North Texas owning that up. So now we're going to get into some segments here. We're each going to pick some games each week that we think, from a wagering standpoint, make a lot of sense. I'm going to start off with my best bets, and we're going to take the UConn-Utah State game. And this game is interesting, Dan. Utah State.
UConn still have a team?
It's a good question. I mean, you know who's coaching UConn?
Randy's out, right?
Yeah, Randy is no more. Randy Edsel. This is a pop quiz. I wanted to test your knowledge.
Golden?
No.
No.
He's down. He's down the football well. I don't know where he is.
I'm trying to think of who resurrected themselves.
I will tell you who. Jim Mora.
Jim Mora, that is correct.
Yeah,
that was
Jim
correct.
Mora.
Wow, I forgot all about that. That was some early news in the offseason.
It was, and I am not sure Jim Mora is going to make much of a difference. At least,
good luck recruiting there, Jim.
At least for his first season.
Yeah, I think it's going to take. It's a slow build.
I'm always intrigued by Utah State. They always have an offense.
They do.
A couple of years ago, they had a really fun quarterback to watch. I like Utah State. Remember, UConn
Not the
has
home
to.
of Zach Wilson, if I remember right.
No. Now you're quizzing me. I will tell you. I think, and this is going to be interesting because UConn has to go out to Utah State. Jim Mora is not going to be able to cover
what a
this.
test.
I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. And I will tell you,
BYU was Zach Wilson.
BYU, yeah. Well, you were in the right state.
Yep. Right colors too.
Yeah, exactly. But I will say this about Utah State and UConn. Utah State, has to play Alabama next week.
Wild.
They're going to want to come in and get this win and prey on a lesser team.
Yep.
So I am
get some
going
of
to
the
take
depth guys in. Give them some time.
I am going to take. Normally, I think we're each going to try to pick 3 games. But on my best bet segment this week, I'm going to take Utah State. I'm going to lay the points. Give me all of them. It's a lot of points, but we can do it.
Yeah, I mean, football comes down to Jimmys and Joes.
Yep.
UConn doesn't have the Jimmys and Joes yet.
I don't think they have Jim Mora.
They do have that. They do have that, Jim. That is correct.
Yeah.
All right, here's a fun one.
Okay.
Now, if you go to Vanderbilt University, your first game, you get to fly out to lovely Hawaii, enjoy the
lovely
breeze,
place, yeah.
the warmth.
The Rainbows. You're taking on the Rainbows.
I'm taking on the Rainbows, and the Rainbows I think are going to have a hard day.
Really?
Yes. I think Vandy goes out. I think Vandy's actually going to be better this year. We have Clark Lee from Notre Dame there coaching Vandy.
Yep.
I think this is going to be a fairly easy win for Vanderbilt, even though Distraction City, I get it. They're young kids going out to Hawaii.
Okay.
But I think this is going to be a fun one.
Clark Lee, second year.
Yep.
You talk about Jimmys and Joes, though.
They have some work to do in that department.
Yeah, they definitely do.
And I'm always a little partial to Vandy anyway because of our very own James Franklin.
Yeah, he actually won there. The season win total on Vanderbilt, if you're placing a bet, is 2.5.
Wow.
That means that you think if they win this game, they only have to win 2 more games.
I think they do it. I think they go out to Hawaii. I think they win it. Now, I think the easy pick would be to take Hawaii at home, opening of the season.
I don't like teams that have to travel.
I agree. I agree with you. And you know how I feel about when Penn State travels.
Yeah, no, I know. This surprises me. I really thought you were going to say Hawaii.
Vanderbilt is 5 days early from what I've understood.
Okay.
So they've been out there. They're acclimating. So hopefully that helps.
You were taking Vandy. All right, now some fun picks as we look ahead to the season. And these are just some picks that, we know many of you out there are Penn State or Notre Dame fans, at least where we are here in central Pennsylvania.
Win totals matter around this part of the world.
Win totals matter, and, of course, the numbers here match this year, both at 8.5. Let's pull up Penn State's schedule here. I'm just going to look at it.
It's rough, man. I'm telling you, every single year it's a gauntlet.
It is. The one thing to keep in mind, though, is I think it comes down to week 1.
It does.
And you're talking about 8.5 wins, so they got to get to 9. If we don't win at Purdue, we're not going to hit 8.5.
No.
I just don't see it. I really think this opening Thursday night game, next Thursday, is very intriguing.
It's huge. And I will say, going back to last year, that win at Wisconsin, really set things off on the right foot to begin with. I mean, think about how well Penn State played in the first 5 games.
Yep.
It was more the back half of the season when they got into the meat of the Big Ten schedule that got them.
And it was injuries that got them,
It
too.
was.
Let's show you what we have here. I am going to take the over on both Notre Dame and Penn State. And you?
Okay. This is where I differ a little bit. I'm a little bit of a pessimist when it comes to Penn State. I think this is more of a transition year. I'm going to go the under. But Notre Dame, I think, is a tough team this year. I think they're getting primed to join the Big Ten. But I think this could be a launching pad for them. I mean, they recruit unbelievably well. And to me, their schedule is a little more manageable than Penn State's overall.
So I have to get to 9 wins.
Okay.
So that means we're just going to look at the schedules here. Purdue, I have to give them a win there.
Yep.
This is Penn State. Now we're talking about Ohio.
Yep.
Win.
That's a win.
Auburn.
Tough.
Tough.
Down
on the
Auburn.
road. But I don't know how good they are.
That's a program in peril.
Yes, it is.
They have coaching issues, they have recruiting issues,
They
they've
have
had
booster
transfers.
issues.
Well, you name it, they got it.
I am going to give us. I'm going to say that's a loss, and
Okay.
I hate to do that, but just
tough
for the
game.
arguments, we have to lose one. Central Michigan is a win. Northwestern, I'm going to give us a win. Michigan, we have to go there.
Mm-hmm.
Loss. Minnesota, I think we can beat at home. Ohio State, loss. So now, we have to win out by my prediction here. Indiana, Maryland, Rutgers, all should be wins, and then Michigan State is the finale. It could come down to the finale at home against Michigan
always
State.
Does. I just
Michigan
remember
State.
that kid. I remember that as a kid. Michigan State just always felt like the tipping point every single year.
Land grant trophy.
Yep.
All right, let's do Notre Dame quickly. We've got some time here.
Let me go back to the graphic there.
Because, again, this is the same thing. So we both think over.
Yep.
They start off with Ohio State. I'm sorry, that's going to be a loss.
Yeah, that's a hard way to start.
Marshall win, California win. North Carolina's an interesting game, but I think they're going to win that.
I think they beat Mac Brown.
BYU, they have to go there.
That's hard.
I'm going to say loss.
That's hard.
So that's 2 losses. Stanford, they get at home.
They should win that.
UNLV,
should win
Syracuse,
that. Yep.
Clemson. I don't know what Clemson's going to be.
We don't know.
I'm going to give them a loss in that, so now they have to win out. Navy,
Yep.
Boston College,
Yep.
and USC, led by Lincoln Riley.
And that's a wild card, too.
Both numbers seem right to me, 8.5.
Yep.
They both seem right to me.
It's really, it could go one way or the other.
Yep.
But I do think overall the balance of Notre Dame's schedule is easier than Penn State. Penn State's midsection of their schedule.
It's brutal.
It's brutal.
Yep.
When you don't have the playmakers on offense that Penn State had last year. We'll see about Nick Singleton.
Yeah, we don't know that
We
yet.
don't know about Singleton yet. Singleton could be this year's
and the transfer we have from Western Kentucky, the receiver.
Tinsley.
Yes. Telling you, he could be very good. So we'll see. But
and
you
got
don't
Parker
know.
Washington.
Yep.
You got some other guys. You got Brenton Strange, a tight end. Offensive line scares the living you-know-what out of me.
Georgia has the best tight end room in the country. I would argue Penn State's is close, but you got to live up to it.
Got to live up to it.
We got to keep moving here.
Footballs.
We do want to talk about some playoff picks next, or conference picks. I'm going to go Alabama to win the SEC. That is not a leap. Ohio State to win the Big Ten, not a leap. Brent Venables coming into Big 12 play this year.
Very interesting stuff there.
Yeah. Oklahoma's one of those teams again. I don't know. They lost a lot of players.
Yes. And it's a defensive-minded coach.
But
it's very interesting for Big 12 football.
I still think they're better than Texas, and I still think they can run through the conference. Kansas State would be a dark horse pick there. Keep an eye on Kansas State.
I've heard the same thing. I don't know as much about their program as of late. Ever since the old coach, the retired
Bill Snyder.
coach, Bill Snyder.
Yeah.
I mean, he built quite a program. Every once in a while, they kind of springboard. Also, can't keep your eyes off Oklahoma State, the Cowboys.
Oh, yeah, Mike Gundy.
Mike Gundy, run and gun.
Clemson, keep an eye on North Carolina State in the ACC, but I'm going to pick the tried and true Dabo Sweetie and the Pac-12. I thought about picking USC, but again, Jimmy St. Joe's. I love what Kyle Whittingham has done in Utah.
Every year, though, they seem to lose a game they shouldn't.
Yeah, you're right, but I think we're going to be talking next week about Utah, Florida. That's a big game in
That's
week
a big
one.
game. That is a very big game.
All right, let's go to your conference picks for the
so
season.
I'm not that different than you. I of course, go head ball coach Nick Saban. But I am going Michigan State. What Mel Tucker did last year kind of opened my eyes, and I think he's formidable in the recruiting world. So I do think they have a little bit of momentum coming into this year. Big 12, I'm going Baylor. That's my sleeper for the Big 12.
I do like Baylor,
Yes.
and it's not a sleeper, really, if you think about it. They won last year.
Right. It just doesn't have the notoriety after the scandals.
Yep.
So Pitt in the ACC,
Really?
I love what Pat
They're going to beat
Narduzzi's doing.
Clemson, do you think?
I think so.
I think you're wrong. I don't like Pitt.
We'll have to let it
I don't
play
like
out.
Pitt.
But
And Michigan State, to me, I have to comment on that. I do like Mel Tucker, but I don't think living on the transfer portal can get you very far. I think it comes crumbling down for him this year. But listen, if
they
you're
were so strong last year.
if you're attaching your horse to him, it's not a bad person to attach your horse
Yes.
to.
Well paid too, by the way. It's a well paid horse.
Indeed.
All right, so USC then. I'm thinking Lincoln Riley. Pac-12's a mess right now.
So we have some differences. Yeah, they are a mess. You're right. You could come down to USC Utah,
It could. It very well could.
and they're not doing divisions this year, so they could be in the championship game.
right. So it could come down to the top two there. Your playoff picks. I find these to be kind of ho-hum. This is one thing I don't like about college football is that
We need
year
a bigger
after year-
postseason.
Yeah.
It is so tough. But again, Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, after that, take your pick. I am going to go Oklahoma. I think that they're good enough to do it. But if they don't, I'm telling you, I like Utah.
Yeah.
They almost did it last year.
Yeah, they almost did do it last year. They were in it till the end. So I could see why you went that direction. Ohio State, just bugs me how good they are year after year. Just they're a recruiting machine. Ryan Day, even after the change from Urban.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. Doesn't make you feel good, but
no, it is what it is. So
yep.
again, my Mel Tucker love. I'm giving him the Big Ten. I'm staying with Alabama in the SEC going into the playoffs. Baylor, I have getting in again.
I don't think it's a bad pick at all.
Big 12 sometimes gets snuffed.
Yep.
But maybe this is the year they finally get in. And, of course, got to go back to Kirby. Kirby Smart getting back into the playoff. And my dark horse, those Fighting Irish we talked about earlier.
They have the schedule to do it if
Yes.
they're as good as some people think they
are. And if Clemson's ranked in the end, they can beat them. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, schedule plays a lot into it for them since they're independent.
No doubt about it. So this is our summary picks for what we have given you here for our week 0. For the Nebraska-Northwestern game, you're going to pick Northwestern outright money line. Money line to win that game.
Correct.
I'm going to go the under at 50.5. I just think it's going to be some sloppy football. They have to go all the way over to Dublin. And let's face it.
It's a mess.
Nebraska-Northwestern have played sloppy before.
It's not the best football that you can find in the Big Ten, that's for sure. We both went Brett Bielema, again.
The head hog now in Champaign.
I think he's going to turn them around. I mean,
Bert.
I thought Lovey could do it,
Bert.
but I have more faith in Bielema.
Bert. Love them. All right, moving on. I am picking. This is one that I changed my pick.
Oh,
and
my
That
apologies.
is okay. I am, for the record, and we'll correct this next week. That's okay. Charlotte +7.
That's right. You did go Charlotte
taking the
+7.
points. You're laying the points with FAU.
Yeah, again, I think the Owls are a fledgling program in Florida, but I think they've made enough strides, especially with Lane Kiffin. Their recruiting, I think their facilities are taking a step up. All that matters. All of that matters.
Willie Taggart.
We
will see.
See if he's with another team next year.
The next one is a fun one in the Sun Belt, North Texas, UTEP. I'm going to go the Miners +1. You are going over. You think it's going to be a run and gun?
I think it's going to be run and gun. I think it's going to be a lot of points. It may be the game of the week in terms of offense.
We're going to be watching that on Saturday night. Let's check out our best bets and your
bets.
Doppler dandies. I'm going to go Utah State. Give me all the points in that. I think UConn stinks, and you're going Vandy.
I'm going Vandy. They are my Doppler dandy. Again, Vanderbilt, SEC team.
Vandy is your dandy.
Yeah, Vandy is my dandy. Okay. I didn't even think about that.
There
but
you go.
I'm going 6.5
Perfect.
in their favor.
So, again, those are our picks of the week. We're going to write a little column on this, too, on the website. You can find it at abc27.com. You can watch us on YouTube. We're going to be flooding Facebook and Twitter with this. We love to do this. We have some passion for the game. It's fun. We're going to be doing this with the NFL. We're going to mix college and the NFL when the NFL starts. We'll dabble into Major League Baseball once the playoffs start.
Right. Once the Phillies get in. I don't want to jinx it ahead of time.
No, please don't. You may just have. But we are sports lovers, and, of course, we're going to use our expertise of the weather to give you our take on some of the games of the week where weather may play a big role, and we want you to sign up and let us know. Write us and tell us what you want us to talk about.
And again, as we get deeper into the season, we can bet on weather having an impact on these games.
That is something you absolutely could bet on.
Especially Big Ten football. It always seems like the weather has some huge influence on a big game somewhere down the pike. If I'm a Penn State fan and you want that over on the 8.5, I want some better weather throughout the whole season. Because, again, it always seems to throw them off.
Yeah, it does. And I wonder where you think, if you think we're going to be under, where you think our losses are going to be this year.
Well, the Purdue game scares me a lot. I think we could come out a little bit flat. I think Sean Clifford has to be on his game from the jump, which is a lot to ask for.
Which he was last year.
He was. Mike Yursich, another year under him. I think that has an influence. But I don't feel good about a win in West Lafayette. I think they beat Ohio. I think they lose to Auburn. Again, Auburn, a very tough game. Northwestern and Central Michigan should be wins. But I don't see them beating Michigan. I don't see them beating Ohio State. Michigan State, as I mentioned, is kind of my pick, my favorite in the Big Ten this year. I think that's a loss, too. It's unfortunate. I think James Franklin's going to take a lot of heat coming out of this year again.
Yeah.
He may even have to make an offensive coordinator change again, too. But the thing that could help you out, again, is some of these freshmen coming in, Tinsley coming in, whether it's Katron Allen, whether it is Nick Singleton stepping up. Some of these guys could really become playmakers and be the difference.
Yeah.
And if you want the over, that's what you're looking for. But I would love to see 9 wins, 10 wins. My God, that would be great.
Double digits would be good. So that's the deal. Dan, if you want to throw up the promo board here, and we will wrap up and tease ahead next week. Of course, we've got a lot of Week 1 action heading your way. We do anticipate talking about that Penn State-Purdue game. Big games, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Utah, Florida. Remember, it's still just college next week, but we will talk about the Eagles, of course, the Steelers, and, of course, the entire NFL coming up here, too. But I texted you a phrase I think we'll close the podcast with. I've got to tell you, here's our little slogan. Ready? Whether you bet big or whether you bet small, weather might turn a loss into winning it all. And we certainly hope we can help you with that.
We certainly hope you can. And again, next Wednesday, we'll be back on here recording. So
Sounds
look
good.
forward then. We'll talk about it on the air as well, Brett. But this has been exciting.
It has. And, you can find the articles, as we mentioned, on abc27.com. Our videos will be on YouTube. And we're going to keep you posted. Have a great season, everybody. We're excited for football kicking off this Saturday.